Welcome to the Genius Looks Like This podcast. I'm your host, Venus, founder of Venus Souls, your intelligent leadership executive coach for women. And I'm here to remind you of the power of your own genius. And with your genius, you can stand in your power and empower. You can rise and you can raise. You can live with passion and impassion. Each episode, I'll be getting up close and personal with genius women from all over the world, as well as your weekly dose of motivation so that you too can realize your own genius. And be inspired to be the intelligent leader you were born to be. I just want to quickly remind you that if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button in your favourite podcast app. And don't forget to rate and review the show and send us your comments and questions at info@venussouls.net. This is a podcast about geniuses and leaders who make a dent in the world of business and in people's lives. We ask daring questions like, where are all the female leaders gone? How can we lead better in a landscape that's rapidly changing? And is it possible to lead with soul and create abundant wealth? These questions and more on the Genius Looks Like This podcast. If you believe you have a genius and would like a free executive coaching session to find out how to realize it, email us at info@venussouls.net with subject heading podcast. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Genius Looks Like This. Today I have an amazing genius with me today, a bit of a superwoman. Her name is Harriet Waley-Cohen. And what a privilege and honor it is to have you on the show, Harriet. What a treat it is to our listeners as well. So thank you very much for being here with us today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for accepting. And before we start, I want to particularly tell my international audience about who Harriet Waley-Cohen is and what she stands for. Harriet is a superwoman of sorts. She's a coach as well as an inspiring public speaker. Her mission is making you unstoppable. Her work, whether through coaching or public speaking, is about making people understand their true value and what they're capable of being. She empowers her clients and audiences to leave behind self-doubt, disempowering patterns, and overwhelm in favor of thinking, feeling, acting that creates confidence and well-being and success. Harriet, in my opinion, you are nothing short of a superwoman, but in a far more powerful sense than the typical superwoman warrior archetype that we have come to know so well. There is something powerfully and enchantingly authentic about you that makes you so earthy and relatable, and it captivates your audience. And that's why I want to talk to you today about authenticity a little bit later on the show. But first, could you please share with us what your genius is?
Gosh, it's funny because when you hear other people say all these accolades about you, they think, really? Is that really me?
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Gosh, what is my genius? If you, I think it depends on who you ask. Like, if you asked my dog, she would say that cuddling was my genius and that I'm really good at throwing her frisbee. If you asked my children, they would say it's kindness and understanding. And if you asked my friends, I would love to know what they would say, actually. I might have to message them. But in terms of what I bring forth, I think my real, one of my core strengths is the fact that no matter what life throws at me, I pick myself up quickly. I'm not afraid to reach out and ask for help, pick myself up, get through it as best as I can, and then find a way to use that experience to benefit others. So to turn anything I've been through into a source of inspiration, because the thing is, you see some of these people online or out there, and they're gurus or they're whatever, and they look like literally, they've never had a zit, and they've never had a bad day, and their car has never broken down, and they've never had a bad thought about anyone, and no one's ever broken up with them, and they've never put on more than 2 pounds, and actually that's not real.
Yes.
Whereas I'm a real person, except I do know how to get through tough times and come out the other side stronger, wiser, and determined to use that experience. I mean, for example, just in the last year, I was diagnosed last September in 2018 with breast cancer. Very luckily, very early stage breast cancer, but there was a lot of it. And I ended up having major surgery and reconstruction and all this kind of thing. And yet, rather than allowing this to be a source of shame or fear, I've allowed it to be a source of almost like an extra skill, which is now I really understand even more deeply how to love your body no matter what. And this is one of the things that I teach women, is how to love your body no matter what. But actually, initially, it was when I first started doing this about 5 years ago, this body love work, it was around your appearance. Yet 3.5 years ago, I was badly injured in a car crash and now have mobility and permanent pain to deal with. And then I had the breast cancer. And so it's kind of like layers upon layers. I just see everything that I go through or experience as a way of helping others and inspiring others and like sharing the wisdom, right? I feel like it's my responsibility to share the wisdom in a way that's relatable. And to me, that doesn't feel like genius. That feels like a calling. It feels like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, kicks me up the butt and goes, yeah, and now you can use this to help others. And I'm like, oh God, make it stop, right? Can I not just help others without going through all this stuff? But actually, I don't want to learn from those people who look super perfect and like nothing's ever gone wrong. I like to learn from people who've gone through the mess as well.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. And I think, the word genius, if you take it to its ancient meaning in the Roman times, it actually meant the gift that you are given from the day you are born. And then it becomes your purpose. So in effect, it's your mess does become your message. And, I can completely relate to what you're saying. You go through so much and, the trauma, the transformation and so on. And when you come out the other side, you feel that you owe it to the world to say, look, there is a solution and here it is. And I want to help you implement it in your own life to get over it and overcome your difficulties.
Absolutely. And I think that whenever I go through stuff, I look for other people who've been through it and come out the other side, who can share their wisdom with me. And then I feel like I have an obligation to hold my hand out to people who are then going through it and saying, hey, here's what I did. And this is what helped. And I think that we'd all rather, go talk to someone who actually knows what they're talking about because they've lived it.
Absolutely. And it's the most authentic thing to do as well. You're not pretending to be perfect and saying, let me show you how perfect you can be, as perfect as I am. You're actually saying, no, there are wounds and there are vulnerabilities, and I know you've got them too. And it's opening up your own wounds to help others heal theirs. I do think that's the most beautiful thing you can do. And
it gives you an awful lot of compassion as well.
Yes,
because you really understand what people are going through because you've been there.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like feeling like you're in the same boat rather than that you're some person on a pedestal, and I think that's important too.
Yes, and that's how we connect as well, funny enough. Yeah. It's the most real connections are created that way, I believe. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Right, so my next question is about authenticity. And because I feel just you do have this beautiful, authentic and enchanting quality about you. And I've been hearing the word authentic has been used so much in the it's become a trendy word, hasn't it? But I think it means different things to different people. And actually some people don't like it because they feel that there's too much openness involved, and it can get uncomfortable. And some people think that it's about being loud and proud and making a fool out of themselves because that's the real them, or something along those lines. But I think we miss something when we use the word authentic. So I wanted to know what you think the word authentic means.
For me, I think authentic is close to integrity. It's about not pretending to be something that you're not to other people, and being okay with saying, hey, look, this is who I am. And that does mean, when it's appropriate and to a degree that's appropriate, perhaps sharing your wounds or your imperfections, right? That, because that's truly who you are. But being authentic also, to me is about the other side of integrity or congruence, which is about living a life that is truly aligned with who you are. And that means knowing who you are, knowing what your values are, whether that's and knowing also knowing what matters to you ethically and politically and morally. Like, we all have our own inner moral code, and so it's about knowing, like, what really matters to me, and doing that thing. Like, if you're really sit on one side of the political fence and it really matters to you, go out there and do something about it. Don't just sit there doing nothing and complaining. If you really care about poverty or human rights or the environment, where is your action matching up? And I guess that's where you could sum this up. Actions speak louder than words, in terms of authenticity. So this is, I think I did a post on this, and it was a while ago, about trainers, buying a pair of trainers. And I pretty much, mostly, as much as possible, wear pink trainers. And I found this beautiful pair of pink trainers online, and I was going to buy them. And then because I used to work in banking, and I used to do some reporting on the CSR, the corporate social responsibility side of the investments, as part of what I did. And so I knew a little bit about this company from a long time ago. And I just kind of thought, in the back of my mind, I thought, I wonder how they're rated for their practices. Is this an ethical company? Is this a company that I'm happy to give my money to? In effect, that I'm literally buying into them by buying their trainers. And I did my research, and I was like, oh, I'm really not, actually. I'm going to have to let go of the pink trainers of joy and look up some other brands. So I looked up some other brands, and I went and I found one. And again, I'm not going to name names because it's the principle that's much more important here. And I found one where I was like, okay, I'm actually happy to be aligned with that. And I think that everyone has different degrees to which that would be acceptable. But that's part of the reason I think the world is in the pickle that it's in today, is that people are not awake to what they're doing. And I think authenticity is also about being awake and knowing what you stand for and really living it, taking the time, as I did with those pink trainers, to say, okay, well, if animal welfare is that important to me, why am I buying factory farmed meat? Right? Like, really, live your principles, know who you are, and then honor that.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. And it's quite unusual for people to go that far to align who they are and their values and principles with their actions, like you said. And I think you're right. That's how, authenticity is a spectrum, I suppose, and how much you align yourself with that on that spectrum, align yourself with your values and your actions. That's where you will stand on that spectrum.
And it also makes you feel amazing about yourself, because you don't have any doubts about yourself. You're not undermining yourself in any way. You're not sending mixed messages to yourself. Like, you're saying that what matters to you matters. And really beautiful as well. So I think for me, that's what authenticity is about. And I think you're right. Not everyone. It's funny when you said, "Oh, not everyone lives like that." My first response was, "Really?" because I think that a lot of my close friends, like we are like that, but maybe we're at the militant end of the scale, or what I would call the very awake, conscious, deliberate end of the scale.
Yeah.
Because so many people, I think, would not buy that cheap t-shirt if they knew the scale of the human rights abuses and environmental damage that it cost. They would rather pay, you know, £15 instead of 5 and have a clear conscience about it. But most people don't take the time to find out, or it doesn't occur to them to find out. It's not something that gets taught necessarily in schools, and if it's not something your parents or your peer group are doing, why would you do it?
You see, the problem is, politically speaking, we are not made, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but politics, you know, these days particularly, you know, you've got Trump on one side and you've got Brexit on the other. It seems to have all just boiled down to immigrants and you know, immigrants and refugees and the economy, and how they're both related. No one's actually talking about abuse of human rights or abuse of you know, the injustice that's being created around the world. No one's actually thinking about that, and no one's thinking beyond that, because you really do have to be, like you said, awake in order to make the connections between somewhat, you know, people in a certain country on a different continent, they're suffering. How is that linked to me? Most people say, oh, it's nothing to do with me, I don't care. But actually, we need to care in order to create this domino effect where we're all able to achieve something, and we're all able to actually achieve what it is that we're all looking for, which is justice and freedom and equality.
And happiness. At the end of the day, we all want to be happy, but a lot of, as you say, we don't think, why are these people fleeing their countries? We just think, well, I don't think, but I'm saying we, like the royal we, like people out there, so I hear, just want to make sure there aren't more people coming in because they just see a scarcity of resources. But actually, it might be our military efforts that have created that situation, or it could be global warming, which we're all jointly responsible for here in the West, and capitalism, right? And it's all very well thinking, you know, my life will be complete when I have a bigger house and a shiny, flashy car and a Gucci handbag. But what is the cost of that? And I think there is a lack of consciousness and a lack of, and therefore a lack of responsibility. It's actually much easier, isn't it, not to be conscious, not to be authentic, and to live a life where you're just consuming and drinking and like never stopping to really say, is this what I want? And actually, I think it was an ex-boyfriend of mine who used to say, only build the future you want. Only create the future you want. And I think that's the thing. A lack of authenticity means that you're not creating any kind of future deliberately.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I think authenticity helps us become more open. And when we're more open, we're able to tap into that resourcefulness, that innate resourcefulness, that where we're able to create and design the future that we want. But if we're not open towards ourselves and towards the world, it definitely has an impact. It closes up the opportunities, the future, the kind of future that we want.
It's something that I've been thinking about today, actually, this business of when you judge yourself. Often people who have a strong inner critic are very judgy of other people, but God would never admit it, you know, which is, I think it's part of it. And this ability to just go, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. This is what I stand for. It does bring connection, but it's also this dropping of this, the whole perfectionism
Absolutely.
issue.
Yeah.
There's so many rabbit holes we could go down right now.
I know, it's getting quite serious.
We're getting deep. Any minute now, I'm gonna, you know, start swearing about the patriarchy. So let's
Yes, let's keep it clean, shall we?
definitely let's not start swearing about the patriarchy, although it would deserve it, really, seriously.
Absolutely. But you see, the thing is, the patriarchy and what we're talking about are very much connected, because, you know, you work with women who have limiting beliefs, and those limiting beliefs invariably have been created by the patriarchy. And we're under layers and layers of conditioning through the media, and the different messages inside and outside. We're told, I've got layers of protectionism, and layers of I'm not good enough, or layers of I'm too much, and layers of and the authenticity, or the authentic self that we're looking to find and get in touch with, is hidden and buried beneath all those layers. How do we rescue and bring out people from all those layers? How do you do it?
I think it's interesting because we have, like, if you imagine where you've got yourself, right, and you've got your comfort zone just around yourself, and then you've got a zone that's just outside the comfort zone. So that's kind of just okay. It's kind of almost it's sort of so near your comfort zone that it's kind of safe, but it feels a little bit like, oh, will this be okay? And then beyond there, you've got the trauma zone. And it's really important not to expect people to jump from where they are in their safe zone to the trauma zone. However, because that's not helpful to want someone to strip everything back and literally, figuratively, metaphorically be naked, because that's terrifying for them, and it may not have a great result. And therefore then they go even further, they retreat even beyond their comfort zone to the ultra safe zone. So I think it's very important just to start with a little bit of courage, and just nudge, edge out of that comfort zone into that little ring outside, and see how that feels, and then keep nudging a little bit more. When I talk in schools to teenagers, and I talk to them about, the courage to honor yourself, I do say, look, start small, start really small. If somebody says they're bitching about a teacher or another child or whatever it is, or even someone in the media, and you don't like it, say, oh, you know what, I actually quite like that maths teacher, or you know what, I don't like it when you talk about so and so like that, because actually I actually really like Justin Bieber, or whatever it is. And those small acts of courage give you a bigger sense of courage, because when they all work out, as they start to work out, you start to kind of open like a flower opening and going, oh, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And before you know it, you're way in what you would have thought previously was the trauma zone, but because you got there in such tiny steps, it didn't actually feel too scary. So I think easy does it, but also when it comes to courage and honoring yourself and being authentic, it's really important to practice with these tiny little things, because there may come a moment where you have to really stand up and be counted, and if you haven't practiced it, you probably won't. Whereas if you're used to it, and you're used to it being okay, or used to doing it, even, there's that saying, isn't it, speak your truth even when your voice shakes. If you're used to doing that, then you'll be able to, at those times when it most matters, when it's not Justin Bieber. I don't know what it could be, but let's hope it doesn't go as far right as it could, but let's say we all have to really start pushing back, or whatever we need to do. It'll be important.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. And what I'm also hearing you say is that it's very important, and a form of self-compassion, that you give yourself time to get there. It's not going to happen overnight.
Absolutely. And it's okay to step forward, one step forward, two steps back. It's okay to say, okay, I'll be vulnerable about this. I'll tell people about the fact that I quite like Justin Bieber, but God forbid I should ever tell anyone, God forbid I should ever wear a bikini and let people see my body. It's okay to just edge in certain directions first. You don't,
set yourself goals, achievable goals, and monitor yourself. Well, Harriet, honestly, I could talk to you for hours. You're a woman after my own heart. I would love for you to now tell us a bit about how people can reach you, and tell us. I know that you're doing fantastic things, from what I've heard, and I would love for you to talk to us, tell us a bit about what's happening.
Yeah, well, there's loads of exciting things happening. I'd say it was in the spring where I declared war on women not feeling good enough, and I know there's a lot of other people in this space too, which is fantastic. I really think it needs it does need an army out there, because women have been, women's feelings about themselves have been crushed for so long, and we've been kept down by so many different things, that it does need a lot of us doing that. So I'm putting on a series of events, 1-day retreats, called Goodbye Not Enough, and the next one coming up in October is around how to love your body no matter what, which is really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. I'm also writing a book about that. I've just sketched the plan out, which I'm going to send over to my publishing people, which I'm really excited about too. So that's plans for 2020. And then I have smaller events going on all the time. So I have an event in September. These are all my public events. I do also speak in the corporate sector, but obviously they're not open to the public. I have an event for my fan group online, but we're meeting in person, which we do several times a year, and that's all about how to end the year strong. So that's all good. And my group online, that's called Harriet's Inner Circle, and that's on Facebook. You're in there, aren't you, Vinny?
Yes, I will put a link to it on the description.
Oh, brilliant, because I think that's the best place, to be honest, for people to connect, watch my videos and live streams. That's where all the special offers go out as well. Yeah, so that's all good. And then right at the end of September, I'm giving a talk in London on the toxicity of perfectionism and what you can do about it, because I think not everyone who feels not good enough is a perfectionist, but everyone who's a perfectionist doesn't feel good enough.
For you to come back and talk to us some more about that particular theme.
Definitely. I'd love to do that. Yes.
Thank you so much, Harriet. This has been amazing.
It's been such a pleasure. And I look forward to staying in touch, to meeting in person really soon. And I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much. And yes, we'll speak to you soon. And good luck with everything. And thank you for everything that you do. It's very important.
Yeah. Okay. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.